oh my God, we found the property. It was the feeling that we had been waiting for the 2 years. I have two pieces of advice. Imagine searching for a needle in a haystack, where the needle is your dream property and the haystack is 2 years worth of twists and turns and curveballs. And that is the roundabout story of how we ended up finding our unicorn property that we call Marshwinds. And I wanted to share the story of how we found that, um, hopefully for inspiration for anybody who's trying to find their own unicorn. So from the very beginning, we knew a couple of things that we wanted. We had to have two homes on the same property. We did not want to live in the same house. We knew we wanted to be within city limits, not rural living. And we knew we had to have deep water access because water and boating are ways of life for us. So we started our search with those parameters in mind. We were looking at properties with two homes. Turns out those are super rare and nearly impossible to find. So we expanded our search. We decided we will start looking at properties with one home where we could potentially build a second one. That proved to be pretty much every bit as challenging because turns out that with building regulations, there are so many guidelines about how close together buildings can be, how far back you have to be from property lines and easements. So you end up having to have a really large property. At least this is the case in Charleston. You have to have a large property to accommodate all of this. So what ends up happening is that you are either well outside of city limits or you are 15 times over budget. So at this point, probably, 9 months into our search, we decided to change our approach. We were crystal clear still on the location and the two homes, but we started considering anything that could possibly be feasible. That meant looking at anything and everything that came up that even possibly could have potential. And we ended up with three contenders. I would say we looked at way more than three, but we had three contenders before we found Marshwinds. The first one was a single home on a beautiful property, still probably my favorite location of all. And we were going to build a second home on it. Once we got with the builder, drew up some plans, we realized it was going to really feel cramped and kind of take away from that spacious, tranquil vibe by the time we got a second house on there. So that one went away. The second one had also a single home already on it, but it was a low ranch built on the ground. And the idea was we could build the second home behind it, but like a coastal home on pilings. So it would look out over the ranch. So we would both have these incredible views, but we got with some builders, we got with, the budget and engineering things. And it turned out that that was going to be much more challenging to do than we originally thought and going to completely blow the budget. So that one went away too. The last one was a property that had two homes already on it. Both homes needed to be gutted. And we were like, this is doable. Great. But once the inspection happened, it turned out that there were a good many things that we hadn't seen, that we couldn't see before the inspection, that really foundational stuff, things that matter, that the budget was just not going to accommodate all of that plus renovations. So back to square one, we were kind of running out of steam, running out of options, and that's when we found Marshwinds. It's a really unique property. It was one home that was already two homes, kind of. So the previous family who lived there had added a wing to the house to accommodate an elderly parent who was moving in with them. It had its own kitchen, it had multiple bathrooms, it had its own entrance. The only thing it really didn't have was the division into two separate spaces. So that was where our brain started going. Can we divide this large, huge home into the two homes that are already existing within it? All it would need is some walls and an additional bedroom. So luckily, my dad, Larry, and my husband, John, they're engineers. They have worked together on multiple big renovations over the years within our family. And so they got to work with their sketch pads and their measuring tapes and the calculators to see, is this feasible? And it was. And so that's when we all were like, oh my God, we found the property. And that's where I'll leave you today. The feeling, all five of us, when we got to the home for the first time, had this feeling, this deep knowing that this was our home if we could make it work. It was the feeling that we had been waiting for the 2 years and all the properties we had seen before, including those three contenders that we all liked, that we all thought had potential, but didn't have the thing, you know? Wait for the feeling. That's my biggest piece of advice. I have two pieces of advice. One, the property exists. What you're looking for, whatever your criteria, it does exist and you will find it. Trust the process. And number two, give yourself the time and the space to wait for the feeling. You will know when it's right. And it means everything. So now we're on to renovations.